Tom. How are you?
Hey guys.
Well, Tom, the big race for the end of this week, Paris-Roubaix, you didn't win the Tour of Flanders. Do you feel the pressure on your shoulders?
The team did win, I didn't win. The press is always there, and I think that we can't worry ourselves now because everything is fine, the legs are fine, condition is fine. And tomorrow is Paris-Roubaix, we have a lot of experience in, so just hope for a bit of good luck, and then everything will be fine in the race.
For many years, really, Team Quick-Step or Team Mapei have dominated this race, but for the last 2 years, the victory's gone to Team CSC. Is that where the rivalry will come from?
They have strong riders. CSC is a very strong team, also a very hack team. I think they always stick together, and with O'Grady and Cancellara, they had the two best riders in the race. But we'll see. I think this year we have a team that's able to compete. It's not only me, it's also Stijn and a lot of the different guys who are also able to do a final. And I don't think we have to worry about being less strong. I think we're equally strong, or maybe even more.
But it's always difficult in Belgium because although the team won last week, Stijn de Volder won last week, the Belgian press pushed Tom Boonen to win races. They want you to win.
Yeah, it's not fair. Huh? I mean, it's not fair to ask somebody for an explanation when the team's winning, you know. But in my case, sometimes they do. But we were riding to win the race. We did a tactical move with pushing Stijn in front. It was a tactical move to help him and to help me, because everybody wanted to chase him, but they were afraid to chase him with me in the wheels. So I think it was the most logical thing to do, and Stijn was really strong that day, and he deserves to win.
Some people say that Paris-Roubaix is a race better suited to you. Do you think that's true?
I only won it once, and Flanders I won twice, but it's true. It's a race. It's more fair. If you don't have any bad luck, it's more fair. Not only the good guys get in front.
Well, everybody, and welcome to our coverage of the 106th running of Paris-Roubaix over a distance of 259 kilometres. As we join the action here, the riders have just started some of the rougher roads, and these are the three leaders. They broke away after around about 92 kilometres, and we've got Matti Pronk, Jan Kijks and Alexander Serov, the four men, and that's the latest gap, Paul. 5 minutes 40 seconds ahead, 130 kilometres to go.
Well, Phil, they've been over 6 sections of cobblestones so far. This race consists of 28 individual sections of cobblestones, making up a total.
Die hebben allemaal hangen.
Hey, kom maar!
Ja. Tot zo.
Hey, kom maar!
Wat de Volder bij dit. We zijn hier achter. Spanjaard op kop. Hier, Lotto. Lotto. Hoofdman.
Ja, hier. Hier. Oh. Hier, dingen. Oela.
Spanjaard.
Himself back into this race.
A little bit of a surprise. He's been caught off
teammate
here.
there
Yes,
is-
Cancellara's
Yeah.
here. And so something has happened at the time they were on those cobblestones, because these big boys are in the wrong part of the peloton and they need to get back up quickly.
Quick-Step had a problem there. I think that was Tom Boonen, because I saw a flash of World Champions bands there on the rider on the right-hand side. There's a lot of incidents happening here. That's why you've always got to ride at the front end of the main field. You've got to avoid the little nasty crashes. And I think there'll be 1 or 2 riders trying to get themselves back into this bike race. There's Tom Boonen.
Big Tom stripping down for the action today, Paul. Now, talking to Stuart over the week, he said he made a big mistake in the Tour de Flanders. The sun came out in Flanders last week, so he took off all his wet weather and warm gear, went back and gave it to the cars. Seconds later, he was in an ice-cold hailstorm. and so maybe he'll be a little bit more careful today.
I think he will. Nobody really knows how the weather is going to develop here in the latter part of the afternoon. Tom Boonen, as you can see, has got himself stripped down for racing there. Got rid of the long arm warmers. A lot of pressure on his shoulders this afternoon coming from the Belgian press. I wonder if the fact that he's wearing number 51 is going to bring him any luck.
It's the famous number, folks. It's the number that's won the Tour de France more times than the obvious one, number 1. And the next one, I think, is number 11. Stephen Roach wore that number when he won the Tour back in '87. Well, he doesn't look too concerned about being caught out in that back split, does he?
Well, he's not got too much to panic about at the moment, because here they've got around about 10 or 12 kilometers of good smooth road where they can relax, recuperate, make sure they've got food and drinks on board before they start to battle for the more important sections, which come just a little bit later on.
Well, this is the action behind the race now. It's like 2 races in one here. The cars. And there's been a crash here.
Hincapie.
George Hincapie is the man in trouble. Maybe it was just a puncture, but a quick wheel change. Routine, perhaps. And Hincapie quickly back into the fray.
Well, he was helped out there by his teammate Marcel Zeeberg, who passed the wheel across very quickly to Hincapie. No panic at all for Big George. He's going to ride his way through the convoy of cars. You see, he hardly lost 2 positions of cars with that wheel change there. But what he's got to do now, Phil, is wind his way up through the crowd. And this I have to... Yep, these are the 3 leaders now, and they've slipped across that smoother section of road on the left there. But what's dangerous, you see, Phil, is when the road narrows in and you have to jump onto the cobblestones are so uneven. If you don't get that jump quite right, you can catch the wheel and the bike just gets taken from under.
Come on. Hey, Jan, come on.
When they get into the forest of Arenberg, that is for sure. And that's not so far away right now. These are the leaders. They'll be on sector 21 as they continue their way, slightly increasing their lead to 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well, the main field won't panic too much. They will know each one of these riders. They'll know their performances from the past. They'll know how strong they are, and they will have figured out that once they accelerate towards the end of this race, they'll feel confident they can pull these three leaders back into the fold. It's only once the big guns start to attack on these cobblestones do you realize how difficult they are, because the main riders like Tom Boonen, Cancellara, Stuart O'Grady, and of course George Hincapie can wipe a minute off these riders.
On to what is a section of 1.6 kilometers. I must say that the boys elite Leif Hoste is up there for the Silence Lotto team. So the riders and Maggie will be really pleased with being up there just now.
He certainly will. He's got to ride at the front end of the main field. We're 20 kilometers away from the forest of Arenberg, and these guys know that. They know it's a very impressive section of cobblestones, and it's not necessarily where you'll win Paris-Roubaix, but many riders in the past have lost all of their chances in that very incredible section of forest. It's around about 3 kilometers in length, but the cobblestones there have to be, I would say, probably the worst ones of the whole course.
Well, they've got them barriered to keep the crowd off the cobblestones. The crowd are being forced to stand in the trails of the forest. It's a section of France, rather, which is boys are quite warm just now.
See how dangerous it is here riding on the cobblestones, because as you're moving up the outside trying to keep yourself well in contact with the race, what happens is riders zigzag left and right looking for a smooth section of cobblestones, and they never look in their rear view mirror before they make that maneuver, and what will happen is you make contact, the next minute you're in the middle of a potato field.
All support there for Milram's Nicky Terpstra. He's in the race today as the Boyd Telecom teams move up on the right.
Ja, daar. C'est nog, c'est nog. Hij gaat afzetten, kom on! 35. Charingi en er is een Lotto. Hij is nog hier.
To ride this race if you're going to perform in it. It's a crazy race. It's like turning the clock back 100 years because this is a race down towards the end where it really is survival of the fittest. It's a race of elimination.
Yes, and you've got to hold your own, and anything can happen at any moment. The time trial champion of Spain, helping him on his way.
Well, obviously Kurt-Asle has been a rider given the chance to perform for his team this afternoon, and that order was given and discussed in the team meeting this morning. If Kurt-Asle has a section of cobblestones where he has a mechanical, somebody has to help him. Somebody will ride close to him on all occasions to make sure that he's got a quick wheel change, because at this point in time the team cars and the mechanics are an awful long way back, up to as much as 5 minutes as the race unfolds.
It is a war between the riders and the drivers, but even the rival team car drivers would never dream of intentionally infringing a rival rider. That simply is not on in Paris-Roubaix. It's the law of the jungle, yes, but you don't ever go up against the rival riders in such a manner.
Stewie O'Grady sitting in the middle there with his dark glasses on. You can't understand what's going through his mind at the moment. I think today he's going to try and do something very special for Fabian Cancellara. Cancellara just the other day was in a press conference, and one of the Swiss journalists said to him, Phil, he said, well, you weren't 100% last week, were you, in the Tour of Flanders? And his retort, and I'll edit it for television purposes, was something along the lines of, well, you'd better get yourself a big raincoat because it's going to be pretty windy when I blow. Onto the main field now and get themselves safely into the Forest of Arenberg. Big Tom Boonen is there. He was just over to the left-hand side, riding nice and comfortably near the front. Maggie Baxter in the blue and yellow. George Hincapie coming forward there over on the right-hand side. He loves this bike race. He's been so close to winning it. In fact, strangely enough, a couple of years ago, it was his former teammate who stopped him from winning this bike race. Tom Boonen beat George Hincapie into second place.
Lovely images here of CSC with Lundqvist setting the pace, Stuart O'Grady just behind. Rabobank are trying to get back on form here too in those orange jerseys. They've got a great fillip by Oscar Freire, becoming the first Spanish rider to win Gent-Wevelgem in the week.
Arenberg, naguère tranché, rebaptisé Trouée, de son vrai nom, Drève des boules d'airain. C'est ici que commencerait...
Hoste here, Mr. Gendarme, who's warning of the island there. The peloton now at 3:53. We're inside 4 minutes. We're bound for the forest. 96.8 kilometers to go. That is, of course, for the leaders who must be almost in the forest.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're now in the town of Arenberg for the leaders, and these riders are not too far behind at 3 minutes and 53 seconds. They're probably looking at a distance of
28 sectors, counting down to 1. Jean Stablansky there. Yes, the miners sadly.
But it really is fire alarms on board the main field here. They know what's coming up next. They've all been and had a look at the Forest of Arenberg. They know the history of this place. They know how important it is to get into the Forest of Arenberg in the front 5 or 10 places. It's a battle right now. It is a war of attrition to just make sure that you can get your leader into an ideal position, to make sure that then it's up to him to try.
Et après encore 30 secondes et d'après de l'ambiance.
Favorites today, as we now see a dead straight road heading for the forest. It's up there. There's an old railway bridge as we cross a railway line, and then we are in the nasty stretch of cobblestones which really do rock those bones.
They will rock.
Mais c'est le cyclisme, donc tout le monde peut gagner.
Arenberg and raced over the top of it. Here we are, about 500 meters to go there. You can see halfway down the bridge over the top for the railway crossing. But now this is going to be an easy entrance for the three leaders behind Phil when the main field come here in about 3 minutes' time. It's going to be absolute and utter chaos. These guys, I would expect, are going to lose between 1 and 1.5 minutes of their advantage in the next 3 kilometers.
These are the three leaders in Paris-Roubaix now as they head into the forest at sector.
Pour des raisons de sécurité, à la grande satisfaction des coureurs, aux grandes dames des spectateurs. Mais pour peu que le soleil soit de...
To tell us that when every day we came here on the day before Paris-Roubaix. 95.5 kilometers. The three leaders are Matti Pronk, Jan Kijks, Alexander Serov, and they're getting into the forest around about 3.25 minutes ahead of the field, which is being led by Stuart O'Grady's CSC team.
Well, there you can see, Phil, that's what the Forest of Arenberg is all about. The main field will charge into this section at around about 60 kilometers an hour. There will be bottles, there'll be bodies flying all over the place, and every bike rider in the world just trying to stay upright for as long as possible. Once you slow down, though, once you lose your impetus, and as we look here at the back here for Serov, the rider from Team Tinkoff, the bike bounces over. This is the battle at the front.
This is in the town of Wallers before we get into the situation, and this has been happening all of the time. And down now, we're looking at another pile up here now. It's just happened. Arnold Coyot of Case Depart is the rider off to the right. 1 or 2 riders, and this is Coyot here. And Pozzato is also a faller this time. He missed out on the last fall, which is about 5 kilometers ago. They caught him this time around. And this, Paul, is amazing. It's just before they've gone into the forest.
Well, the forest is such an important moment for anybody here. There's a rider on the left-hand side there from Team Rabobank. He's passed a wheel across. I wonder if that was Juan Antonio Fletcher, and it was Juan Antonio Fletcher, so he has had to get a spare wheel from a teammate. He's got a battle now to get himself into contact, because to me, as I've always said, Phil, people wonder why I talk about the Forest of Arenberg all the time. It's in the Forest of Arenberg that you can lose this bike race, and Juan Antonio Fletcher this morning dreamed of being the first Spaniard to win it. Now he may well be losing it.
Second last year, and the only other Spanish rider to make second was Poble back in 1958. No Spanish riders ever won it. He's been joined by the winner of the 3 days of Depana here not long ago, Postuma, to give him a leg up, hopefully. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, there's trouble, because this is Serov finally unhitching, and I bet all the work being done by Matti Pronk.
Well spotted there, the white jersey, Matti Pronk, Team Kolstrup on the front there. These guys are having the advantage of only being 3 on the entrance into the cobblestone section of Arenberg here, and so they can ride themselves comfortably on the path over on the left-hand side. 5-star rating now, the Trouée d'Arenberg, the Forest of Arenberg, and the main field and the main contenders are on their way in for a taste of 2.4 kilometers of some of the worst cobbles in the world.
This is an amazing bike race. There's nothing else like it in the world of sport. We are now in that long, straight, horrible 2.5 kilometers of the forest. The crowd are orderly. That's because we've barriered them up this year, so they can't crowd onto the racecourse. This is the charge now of the strongest riders in the race. Right up at the front is Stuart O'Grady, who wears number 1. Alongside him is mate and another likely winner in Fabian Cancellara. Matti Breschel is there. They're all Team CSC. For the moment, they're unaware of those fallers behind them. You see the guy holding the wheels, Paul, just in case somebody has bad luck.
Well,
de bel et bien pavé de bonnes intentions.
Through this section of cobblestones, Phil, this is chaos at the back. These guys now have just got to survive their Paris-Roubaix.
This is Fletcher trying to get back.
He's a long way back there. He's lost himself a minute on the entrance into the Forest of Arenberg, and possibly any chance at all today. Look at the damage this section does. There's Tom Boonen over on the left-hand side. He's riding this race sensibly. In the middle there, you can see the champion of Belgium. He's Stijn de Volder, the winner last week of the Ronde van Vlaanderen.
Well, even the police motorcyclists are standing up. It's a bit painful to sit down in the Forest of Arenberg, and they ride specially adaptive motorcycles, which are normally used for motor.
La partie, l'enfer de Paris-Roubaix reste.
Good move here by Team Liquigas, big acceleration. Then you can see these guys have got to be unbelievable on their bikes to be able to handle their machines over situations like this.
Well, look at them dive for anything now. Mud's better than concrete just at the moment as they head for the inside. No sooner are they there, they've got to rejoin the hard road because it gets a little bit deep and slippery. One brave man going straight on. Anyway, as this is Pozzato now, still trying to pick his way round riders who have fallen off the pace. He fell off his bike. He's just past Postuma, who must have just helped Fletcher into the group and drop back.
C'est en avril 68 que les pavés d'Arenberg ont fait leur apparition sur le parcours, il y a tout juste 40 ans.
His eye on that group in front, and he's going to try and reach him and pray he doesn't get more trouble. Off to the right is Fletcher, picking his way through better riders and trying to get back up there. He knows you've got to get back to the leaders because you never know when something happens again.
And that's Pozzato just behind him. He will not give up at all there. I wouldn't want to be the photo cameraman at the side of the road there, number 13, because that could be unlucky for some. But for Pozzato and Juan Antonio Fletcher, that's been very unlucky here this afternoon.
Well, I'll tell you what, number 13 is actually Graham Watson today, who's just about the world's best photographer, and he's a Brit. And he is now getting some great shots, which we'll probably see on his calendar by the end of the year. The Spanish Basque flags are flying here, the Breton flag, where the Tour de France starts in the midsummer in July, as they continue now to drive off the cobbles.
You would have expected that to be Leif Hoste, but in fact that was Johan van Sommeren, the incredible domestique for Team Silence Lotto, pacing Tom Boonen. Tom Boonen, numero uno for the Friches.
Number one for the chips. It's bizarre. This is an incredible race. We knew this would be a classic, and this is going to be a great classic. The riders are going to continue, then counter the situation, see who's around them, see who they can rely on now, and then try and catch up with the leaders. And just for the moment, we don't know who the leaders are, let's be honest, except Matty Pronk and Jan Kijk somewhere are up front off the cobblestone sector.
Pozzato still trying to ride himself back into this bike race, and there will be no respite at all, Phil, because once they get off this section of cobblestones, the Forest of Arenberg, you've only got 4 kilometres, then the race throws another section of cobblestones at you, and that is the section of Wallers to Elem, and that is a pretty nasty long section as well.
Well, still trying to get on terms here is Fabio Sabatini, another Italian, trying to ride fourth with Pozzato.
George Hincapie. There you can see him just on the far side.
Yes, this is the lead group now, and well, the lead group, but not the leaders. George Hincapie is in this group in a white jersey. We'll just see if we can take stock very shortly. We've got one rider from Slipstream who's actually made this group, Paul.
Well, just getting onto the back there, that is Martijn Maaskant. He was the rider who finished 12th in the Ronde van Vlaanderen last week. So that was an impressive performance by him.
He is a superb bike rider. It's his first year as a pro, but he is a great cyclist, and he's up there.
There you can see Baden Cook as well for Team Barlow World. There's the front runners there over on the right-hand side there, and it's a small group of riders trying to pull themselves back in here on this 4-kilometre section of decent road before you make the right-hand turn onto the nasty section of the next cobblestone road, which is Wallers.
Just take a look at that, the long road. But he really has lost ground every time the leaders have hit the cobblestones. But he's now quite prepared to work for his Tinkoff team at the front. They've still got a gap here. And remember that it's not the race coming up to them, it's about 25 riders. If they can just find the legs to slip into that group, they're going forward. And there might be a big result yet for them.
Well, that's a big sign there from the north of France. This is the small town of Hornaing, one of the former big coal generating units to make electricity in this part of the world. It really is a tough part of the world here, and I think that's why they appreciate this bike race going through their territory, because Paris-Roubaix is a very tough bike race. And there you can see that group which has nearly all of the main contenders in, and then the 3 leaders.
Well, Team High Road, who are in this race, remember Team High Road is now a full American team as well, registered in California, in San Luis Obispo. They've won 22 races already this season. I'm counting also their women's team as well. They've just picked up their second World Cup race yesterday, and so they're on good form. Team High Road, they're on a high, and they'll be looking for a result today with George Hincapie, who's right in there, the 4th man down, second white jersey.
prochain on va à Rambert. Hein? L'an prochain on va à Rambert.
Ouais, il y a trop de monde.
Has finished on the podium here before, and so too has Cervez Carnarvon. Tête de la course, those are the three leaders. They're now coming into section number 16. 3.7 kilometers long. Only a 3-star rating though, because the cobblestones here feel actually apparently rather smooth.
Oh, well, that's nice to hear, Paul, as they come over a railroad crossing, and then if they get across, they'll breathe a sigh of relief, because that's another train that can stop somebody else today. Here comes the lead peloton, just on a minute behind. Lost the whereabouts of Pozzato and Fletcher for the moment, and it's Team High Road first onto the cobblestones. This has been George Hincapie's great moments for years now in Paris-Roubaix, and it looks as though he's not going to let us down again this year, Paul.
No, George Hincapie loves this bike race. He's been motivated for it for many, many years. Back end of the group there is Stijn de Volder. He's probably just keeping a close note on affairs. The winner last weekend of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, but here you can see High Road keeping the pressure on. Hincapie riding at the front, sitting high on his machine, turning over his pedals nice and smoothly. A little bit further back, the Armada there behind him of Team CSC. Fabian Cancellara in 5th place, the winner 2 years ago.
Just checking out the riders are up here now. Bernard Eisel was up here for High Road, but he had that problem. We've got Roger Hammond up here. Andreas Clear is still here. The leaders are now leaving 16, I think it was, back with the Arrière de la Course, the rear of the race just now. These boys, especially the Italian on the back for Lamprey, won't know where he is, so he can't abandon the race. He'll have to follow the arrows home.
Well, Pippo Pozzato and Juan Antonio Fletcher are in this group, but Phil, they're looking to get back around about 1 minute and 10 seconds. They're actually conceding time to that big group containing most of the pre-race favourites, so for them it's still a very long, hard ride. They may well get spurred on and encouraged by the fact that every now and again they can see the helicopter in the distance. This is a precarious section as we zigzag left and right, and you notice that little...
Serov off the back again, hates the cobbles, but the gap is only 30 seconds now, so soon, round that far bend, we're going to see that front group begin to close up, and Serov will be doing well now to save his energy and allow himself to drift back into the chase group. No point in trying to stay with the two front runners now.
No, for him the most important thing is just to try and survive these next sections. This is a very long, nasty section of cobblestones, one of the longest. In fact, it's 2 sections of cobblestones bolted together to make a total distance of 3.8 kilometers, and there he seriously is losing contact. But just look how strong the wind is here this afternoon, and that's what's going to make it a lot more interesting later on once we get to the final few sections, because it's the wind on the cobble sections that could actually split up and create the decision in this event.
And clouds off to the right, looking a little bit ominous, but so far the rain staying away from the riders, who are just concentrating on holding position now. The favourites, most of them, except we've lost 2 real favourites in Pozzato and Fletcher. They're not in that group behind, but they're still going to try and get back here. Just look at the wind now, ripping right across the race. But it's the course changes direction so often, you get all 4 directions.
They will be looking, you can just see the helicopter there. The helicopter will be riding over the group of favourites, so these guys will be able to judge just exactly what their relation is to the group that they want to be in. It's a tall order, though, I think, because of the number of big men who are in this leading break, for those guys to pull themselves back. But if you don't give up in Paris-Roubaix, you can still ride yourself back into the race. That's what's so special about this race. The race isn't over until you get down to the stadium here in Roubaix.
Or you finish up in a ditch, like George Hincapie a few years ago. We don't wish that on him today, though, as George, in his brand new white jersey of Team High Road, has got his team riding well here now. CSC of Stuart O'Grady will be pleased about that. Just to remind the riders before they enter the stadium here in Roubaix, it has been a real hard man's race out there, and I wouldn't write out Fletcher and Pozzato just yet.
No, they're not going to give up those two guys until they've got absolutely nothing left in their bodies at all to chase back into the race. They're on the same section of cobblestones as the men they want to be with, but I tell you what, they're still looking for 1 minute and 10 seconds. Now there you can see Serov is back in the fold. A little bit of company for the first time in many, many kilometres, and the two riders who remain at the front still only have an advantage of 25 seconds. But Pozzato and Fletcher in their group are still holding these guys at 1 minute.
They're just about holding. They haven't got any closer, though, and I suspect that's significant. But once these riders get onto the long stretch of concrete pavement, they might ease up, and if they do, then that'll be Pozzato and Fletcher's chance to finally close the gap. Roger Hammond was the guy in white on the left of our picture leading up the inside. Hammond, a former junior world cyclocross champion, perfectly suited to this race, as he's shown us a few years ago in 2004 when he finished third.
Well, he really likes this race, and as I said, it's a race where you have to be motivated. Almost to the end of this cobblestone section, we were given a time check of 25 seconds, but actually, Phil, once we turn off this cobblestone section, I think it's going to be more likely 10 seconds, and these two leaders will shortly be back in the fold.
Jan Kuyks has got a problem. He's not going to even get that.
Flat tire.
The way he cornered, I say it's his front wheel that went there. He lost complete control of his steering. He pointed to his mate Pronk that he was about to go straight on there. He's got a wheel from the crowd. He's got time, but he's back in the chase group now. So there's just one man out in front now, Matty Pronk, who has been the strong man of that breakaway.
Well, they've got themselves just one lone leader, and I think fairly shortly he'll be back in the main field. We've got a bit of respite for the riders now in this group, Phil. They've got 7 kilometres before they find the next cobblestone section. That will be section number 15 to go, and that's the section from Hornaing to Brion.
This looks to me as though they're getting themselves nicely organised. There's the end of the cobblestones just ahead, and that's where the group has just recently gone right. This is Pozzato here, and who's with him? Servais Knaven, former winner of this race, who's now on Team High Road. And he's supposed to be at the front, so he must have had a problem too.
Well, he too could be one of the riders who had difficulties getting themselves through the big forest of Arenberg. And I'll tell you one thing, though, unfortunately for Pozzato and Fletcher, they're not going to get any help at all from Servais Knaven, because he's got George Hincapie and he's got Roger Hammond in the front group.
So he gets the free ride.
Pozzato's changing his bike here. This is well planned.
Yeah, it was well planned. It was communicated. He obviously had a problem, and he's straight back in the thick of it. No time to change his shorts, so on we go.
Well, he obviously managed to get some information to the team management that he was having a bit of a problem.
And there is Pozzato quickly back with that group, so that was a smooth chase. Right onto the tail now. He'll wait for a few minutes to recover. Then he'll have to go to the front and drive with Fletcher.
They're actually starting to eat into the advantage of that group, because last time we got the time check back, they were inside of the 1 minute mark. Look at Knaven, he gets so low down on his bike there just to stay on the wheel of the rider in front. Fletcher's got a teammate with him to pace him along here, and just in there as well is Tyler Farrar for Team Slipstream Chipotle. You know, it's a team that's pretty much new on the block in a lot of these bike races, Phil, and I have to say they've really gone onto the learning curve very quickly.
Well, it's catch-up time now, because this is Pronk. He got away 92 kilometres in We are about 75 kilometres from the end, and they've got him in their gun sights now, and there's no point in trying to hold them off because they're coming. And Matty Prong has been the strong man, a little bit unlucky that they lost Kykes with the front wheel puncture. Kykes, I presume, is back in this group and probably near the tail right now because the strong men are firing.
Moving up on the right-hand side there, the champion of Belgium. You can see Stijn de Volder wants to be part of the party here for Team Quickstep. Hincapie slipping back into 5th place and saying, not a problem, boys. Keep doing the work. I'm going to sit here and wait for my moment to move.
See the detached there, but in fact, Pozzato is on the back foot there. Back up with the leaders, 71.5 kilometres to go as they still continue to be driven on here by Team Quickstep, who have at least 5 riders. We are now on sector 14 here, and it is still the train of Quickstep with 5 riders on the front driving the train. Behind, at around about 35 seconds, Pozzato here is trying to drag himself back into the action, while Servais Knaven, who won this race a few years ago, sitting there and waiting for a free journey back to the leaders.
Well, just around the corner was the group with Juan Antonio Fletcher, but this is the front of the bike race. 35 seconds back to Fletcher and Pozzato. This is the 14th to go section of cobbles, and this is the section of Tilloy to Sars-et-Rosières. Not far after that, Phil, they'll go on to a very short section of smooth road, and they will get themselves to the cobblestones at Inchy, the Chemin de Prière, or the Road of Prayers, followed by the Road of the Abattoir.
Troisvilles, 3 stars for this one, 2.4 kilometres. The halfway sectors of Pavé, there's 28 in all. This is 14, and not all as vicious, but that is a typical shot of Paris-Roubaix. The shimmer of the dust that comes up from the riders, the Belgian flag indicating for the moment a tailwind, and all of the big teams have got their big...
Ja. Hey, kom maar! Wat laat het?
Signing, he's sitting there quite comfortably. He seems to be happy to have moved to this squad and found a nice place, I think, for the next couple of years of his career, and he may well could come up with a surprise this afternoon. This is the group of Juan Antonio Fletcher. He is hovering at 30 seconds. This man from Spain, who would normally be better reputed as a climbing...
Hey, come on!
Well, but who knows what the cobbles have in store up the road.
Well, Pozzato there is really struggling to stay in contact with this group, and in fact he's losing contact all of the time. Fletcher's around the corner. Just look at the way these guys go around the corner on these cobblestones, hardly slowing down a fraction in their momentum at all. Quickstep have got a nice man in this group here as well, because just sitting on the back of that group there for Quickstep was Martijn Wijnands, and that means if he catches up to the front, then Tom Boonen has got another ally.
Alexander Fletcher was the other rider also coming off the back. This looks like Roger Hammond here.
Knaven, Servais Knaven.
Oh, sorry, Servais Knaven. In fact, he looks as though it is Roger Hammond, though.
Well, I think it was Servais Knaven because he had the national champion bands on his arm from Holland.
Yep.
And
it was Knaven, tis, yeah.
Just in front of him was Juan Antonio Fletcher, but Fletcher seems to have disappeared again.
Yes, and Servais Knaven here, who was the man that took that great victory back.
Interesting for Team High Road. This is the group that they're chasing to try and get themselves into. And very shortly, I would think we'd get a chance to see whether or not Juan Antonio Fletcher's going to make it. They've come now off the end of the section of cobblestones.
The bike change here, Cookie on the left. He just indicated he had a problem with his wheel, and he stopped. Grabbing a wheel for him, and a big running out, because he's got to get back. He might well come back with Fletcher now.
Yeah, but in that confusion, I thought I saw Juan Antonio Fletcher go around the corner, so it looks as if he now has made the contact.
Oh, and there's been a crash here, switch across the road, and a rider didn't quite see his number, but he went down. It was Silence Lotto who hit the deck there, switch on the road. Well, you just never know when Paris-Roubaix bites back, do you?
You have to pay attention all of the time, and it must have been one of the... town of Inchy, and at the town of Inchy there are two sections of cobblestones together. Fletcher up there having a chat with his teammate. That's why you don't give up in a bike race like this. Tom Boonen says, buenos dias, where have you been for the last 40 kilometres?
He says, you don't want to go back there, mate. It's not very pleasant at all. And now he's up in this group here. We'll await the arrival of Pozzato. I think the big boys have shut down just a little bit at the moment. And so Pozzato should get back here, and it may help Baden Cook and his Barlow World squad. He seemed to be the only representative from Barlow World. Johan van Summeren looking over his shoulder there. So the rider that punctured, I think, Paul, was probably Leif Hoste.
Well, that would be the only reason they'd sit up and wait for Leif Hoste again. It seems that he's dogged by bad luck. He had bad luck last week in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the Tour of Flanders, where he snapped his rear mechanism for changing his gears. Pozzato is struggling here, but I have a feeling now that Servais Knaven has seen this as a possibility to ride himself back into the race. And on the right-hand side, in the red and white jersey, there is Baden Cook. He's going to get himself back into the main field as well.
That's the sort of legs these boys needed right now. Cook is going to do them all a favour. He's got to move this race back together again. They're just entering on the main road outside. No, well, he has more or less got on, but it's been a labour, this one. Very, very laborious return. But this is good news for Hincapie, because Servais Knaven is back. He's got a cool face on. He hasn't made any big effort, and he's joined the leaders.
Well, just stretching his back. This is a bike race that really hurts every part of your body. And for Servais Knaven, he knows how important it is in a race like Paris-Roubaix to have an extra ally, just in case you have a mechanical problem down towards the end. So he will get up there quite quickly and say, George, here I am. Can I be of any assistance at all to you? Because I've had a long, hard chase to get back into this race.
Well, when he won this race in 2001, it was a turn of different members of the Domo team to attack. And when he attacked, there was no reaction because they were watching his more famous teammates. Johan Museu, who was a previous winner of this race at the time, and also the world champion as in the current year of champion.
And Stuart O'Grady is in this group as well. He's seen this as a very big chance here this afternoon. Another serious sorting out on the roads of the Tour of Paris-Roubaix here this afternoon. That is bad news, I have to say, for George Hincapie, because that's going to put a lot of pressure on this group. You see 3 more men scrambling to get themselves across the gap. Hincapie caught nowhere in this main field. He's got to get himself to that third group on the road if he wants to stay in Paris-Roubaix.
8 guys trying to go clear here, big names in the world of cycling. It was Johan van Summeren who forced the gap here, but now the top names are trying to recover. It is Martin Maaskant for Slipstream Chipotle.
Well, he's done a great ride. He was 12th last week in Paris-Roubaix, and the team have said, well, we really don't know how good this young guy is going to be. Well, if he's in with the mix with these names, Alessandro Ballan, Leif Hoste, Tom Boonen, Stuart O'Grady, Fabian Cancellara, I think that's quite a reference. Alexandre Pichot, but this is the group that George Hincapie would like to have been with.
And look how fast these boys are moving now. I haven't quite nailed down the Lamprey rider, Paul, but he's got the riding style of Alessandro Ballan. And now we've got all the names coming up. Well, we've given you all these names. We just want to see the next caption, and it should say Alessandro Ballan, and it does. And he's a big danger man up here. This is a very select group, and it really, if it was any race except Paris-Roubaix, I would say one of these guys is going to win.
Theoretically, you would say the race is pretty much all over, bar the shouting, but that doesn't discount the fact that we've got some great champions in this group behind as well who seriously want to win. I'm looking down there at 49.5 kilometres to go to see who is riding on the front end of this group, and I think it's Team High Road. They want George Hincapie to win this afternoon. They want Roger Hammond to have a crack, and this is another difficult section.
Here we go again, 3,000 meters now, sector number 10, Mons-en-Pévèle. It is 5 stars, which means it is the ultimate in pain. And there's 8 riders heading to it just ahead of the group, containing George Hincapie, who has chased, and as he now leaves the 5-star sector, or he doesn't, he just goes round the left-hand bend. All those flags are the flags of Flanders, of Belgium here. A very select chase group. I feel very sorry for George Hincapie. Team, Français Jeux, Paul was telling me, are riding on tubeless tyres, and that's a first. There we are as the wind rips across northern France here. 8 riders are going clear, sadly at the moment without George Hincapie, and the champion of Belgium is leading the way.
Well, the champion of Belgium has put the pressure on there, Phil, definitely.
There's the flag of Australia sweeping across the crowd. 46 kilometres to go, but just for the minute, they're going to have to work out what they're going to do about Stijn de Volder, and the big risk is they will take forward Tom Boonen, and he is the other favourite from Belgium.
But the names, Phil, in that group, the second
was O'Grady as well. There's the shot from the camera. O'Grady coming up behind the man on form this week, Stijn de Volder. This is going to be a great battle now, because these 2 boys are heading the charge. Next stop will be Pavé sector number 9. And O'Grady, I knew he was kidding all week. He's been sitting on some great form. This is leaving it all the work at the back group here to Johan van Summeren, the rider who caused the split, remember. Johan found he got his strong man across in Leif Hoste, but it's still down to him, the super domestique of Silence Lotto. This, by the way, is the same team as the other Aussie, Robbie McEwen. McEwen doesn't like Paris-Roubaix, so he isn't riding. He's watching it on telly. Who would push for the line?
Well, he's a great bike rider. He loves these classics. He's a former winner of the Tour of Flanders, but so's that man there in the champion of Belgium's jersey. O'Grady's played his cards very close to his chest this week. I've talked to him ever since the Tour of Flanders, and he says, yeah, mate, I'm not going too bad. Just trying to keep it underneath the radar. Well, today, he's taken the radar away.
He's definitely done that. He had a plan all the time, and he knows Cancellara is also firing on all cylinders. They've got 2 terrific guns here. Tom Boonen looks pretty cool right now again.
They're on the front, not asking anybody for any help at all, but that acceleration by Leif Hoste there has now pulled Stuart, O'Grady and de Volder back into the fold. Now wait for the counter move.
Well, the only man that they've lost right now is Van Summeren, who started the break and caused the damage. And now we've got these 7 riders, and Hoste is still full of fight.
So is de Volder. Look at this, he's decided. But once we go to the town of Cysoing, that's when we get to another really nasty section, the section from Cysoing to Bourghelles, where in the past we have seen the winning move go clear.
Well, that was a very good move by Stijn de Volder and countered by Stuart O'Grady. Yes, they brought it back, but at what cost to those legs at this stage of the race? Inside Stijn de Volder, the champion of Belgium, and again coming right up behind him, almost as if he intends to follow him wherever he goes, is O'Grady. And here comes another move now, and they've got to dodge through the motorbikes to counter it.
Well, there's a move going there, and this is Tom Boonen trying to catch him out, but Cancellara said, sorry, Tom, you're not going anywhere without me. And now, once the move has started, you notice Alessandro Ballan was paying a lot of attention.
And he's caught O'Grady and de Volder on the back heel here, because the sprint has suddenly found them lacking after their move, so they're going to have to grit their teeth and get onto Maaskant's back wheel. Maaskant himself knows they're behind. He's also beginning to struggle.
So is Leif Hoste too. He's been the man who was responsible for pulling back the breakaway of Stuart O'Grady and Stijn de Volder, and he's caught in the crossfire. I think all of a sudden we're going to see that Fabian Cancellara will look over his shoulder, see how the race has developed, and he may well decide to sit up, but he may well fancy his chances with Tom Boonen.
Into Templeuve now as we head towards the cobblestones here, which are sector 7. They're broke into 2 sectors, 7A, 7B, so really there's 29 sections. But anyway, there's 2 sector 7s as we now start to get back towards the stones again. Now you see the automatic move came from Boonen. Double,
yeah. So it's a very rare thing for a bike rider to win Milan-San Remo and Paris-Roubaix in the same season, and that's what Fabian Cancellara is trying to do.
This.
15 seconds is
the
gap.
teammate shutting down. Teammate shutting down. De Volder says, I'm not going to chase him. O'Grady said, it's not down to me. So they're forcing poor old, the youngster Maaskant now to take up the chase.
Well, Leif Hoste, I think, has shot his bolt here this afternoon because he doesn't have very much left and he doesn't have the confidence to be able to pull this group back. So they're almost raising the white I think it was about 15th with the professionals, but it was 3rd with the amateurs. But there's a big difference, Phil, between the amateurs and the professionals.
I think 15th with the professionals is a pretty cool result, I must confess, because
well, I will
this is the most cruel race.
The 15th place was achieved with 9 crashes.
There's 4 more stars and 3 stars in our picture.
Look at the gap, though, back to the start.
I must be honest, and the clouds have stayed white and fluffy, a little bit chilly, the wind is a little bit strong, but it's been a great day for Paris-Roubaix, and the public here, they really are something very, very special. The Tour of Flanders last week, which was held very close to where we are right now, 72% of the nation watching television were watching the bike race.
But look at this bike race. Just look at how Fabian Cancellara's bike is bouncing all over the place. This is a nasty section of cobblestones. It's bouncing the bike riders, it's bouncing all the muscles. It really is a phenomenal performance by Alessandro Ballan on the field. Is. These guys have been in the saddle for a long time. O'Grady's gone.
He's gone, and he's cracked the 2 boys that had every reason to do all of the work, and he waited, he sat at the back. Now he's getting rid of the big surprise, Martijn Maaskant, and Leif Hoste too's got an hour and a half. We've only seen a few riders in Paris-Roubaix. Imagine the carnage behind these riders. And by the way, if it's time, you're eliminated from the race. They don't even put you on the result, and that is cruel.
Well, what was cruel was a few years ago, Phil, what they used to do was once the elimination time was over, they used to close the gate and you couldn't even get onto the velodrome. At least they'll let you finish now, but they don't put you in the result.
Which also means you can't get to the showers, and for the riders in Paris-Roubaix, that's probably the most important part of the day.
Leif Hoste clawing his way back there in the red jersey of Silence Lotto. He said, look, I
can ride alone faster than most men. Cancellara, Boonen, Ballan. These are the 3 riders preparing to fight out the finish of Paris-Roubaix, but it's still 21.5 kilometers away. Although we're running out of cobbles now.
1 minute and 3 seconds back to the chasers. It's an awful long time, but if these guys start to mess about a fraction, well, then what will happen is that group behind of O'Grady and De Volder will come back to has made the junction. You can see now that Tom Boonen has decided he wants to dictate his own tempo on the front end of this race, and he knows the next section of cobblestones is a long, hard section with a slight climb in it. You can see Boonen allowing the other 2 guys to come forward there. I was a little bit surprised at him.
Chipotle at the back there, Martijn Maaskant. He suffered today, but he's still in the action. Heck, he's riding for the top 7 finish in Paris-Roubaix at the first attempt.
That is phenomenal. 12th last weekend in the Tour of Flanders, and he's now thinking whether or not he can get himself in the top 5, but he needs to sit back and save his energy if he wants to. These men, though, have got to try and figure out how do we get rid of the other 2 guys with us, because the best way to win group is sometimes in this part of France they call these the pavé bleu, the blue cobblestones, because they are very dark blue granite, and when they are wet they are absolutely and utterly treacherous. Now this is a section of cobblestones where if you've got the legs you you can make the move here.
Well, it looked though Big Tom rattled off to the right there and didn't hold his bike down tight enough on that left-hander. Straight through goes Alessandro Ballan. And through on him goes a big effort here by Fabian Cancellara. That is a serious step on the gas pedal.
Well, he knows that this is not yet the moment to make the move. It's when you come to the false flat, and Tom Boonen is paying attention. He's sitting on the back wheel of Alessandro Ballan. Don't give Fabian Cancellara 1 metre, because 1 metre becomes 5, and Boonen knows that. He says, let me come by. You can't let a man like Cancellara have a gap on the Pavé de l'Arbre. Boonen's got the legs in him today.
Do you know what? Cancellara waited there until he saw Boonen take the third wheel and he thought he'd have a go. Boonen got round him, got on him, so gas has come off now on Cancellara. 3 riders together again, and time continues to run out. That was a first serious little foray by Fabian Cancellara.
But it also was the first time we saw any weakness in Alessandro Ballan. We're now about to take another left-hand turn here, and that's when the road climbs up to the Pavé de l'Arbre, the Café de l'Arbre, and that is where, if you've got the power, you can ride away from anybody. And Boonen's going to try.
A massive crowd, and these boys are going to be shouting Tom's name now, because they're all probably Flemish people here, come across the border to see this great race. It's one of the few races that more Belgian riders have won than French riders in the French country. Cancellara, Boonen, Ballan. Oh, and they went wide again, but they... kilometres on the Pavé de l'Arbre, and this is sector 17 here, or 3 to go, and these boys are just fighting it out tooth and nail. All swords are drawn.
It is a hard section of cobblestones. We've already covered a form of fraction of it, but it climbs up towards the summit, and the famous little coffee shop at the top there called the Café de l'Arbre. They get a bit of respite. They'll turn right and left at the top, and then they'll have another section of cobblestones after that. But Boonen, for me, is dictating the pace at the point where he knows it's the most dangerous in a group of 3 like this.
Well, I think he's very wise to get to the front just now, simply because he can see his way through this massive crowd, and he can try and keep himself on course. Cancellara has had a little dig on this cobblestone stretch. He got master, but he's let Tom Boonen know he's up for the fight, and again riding Paris-Roubaix once more.
Well, I tell you what, Boonen was very alert when he saw that happen. He saw that slight gap appear, and he knew that was the moment to come forward. And as soon as he did, he accelerated across the gap, and that was the indication to me that Boonen's got the legs here this afternoon, but he's still got 2 riders with him, and he's got to be worried about taking them all the way to the velodrome. There's the Café de l'Arbre there. It's a very small little cafe, only opens once a year, and this is the end of that section of cobblestones. But I'll tell you what, there'll be a lot of beer drunk in that cafe tonight.
Well, let's hope they take a few bob today if they're closing for the next 364 days. But anyway, Paris-Roubaix goes on. 14.3 kilometres to go. The gap continues to open at 1:37. Might drop a little bit now because they've stopped racing for the moment. This is the second group here. Stijn de Volder, unusually so, slips into the ticket collecting position now. O'Grady has moved up behind Leif Hoste.
Well, they're leaving it all up to Leif Hoste now. They're pretty much on the same section of cobblestones as the guys who were there with a few moments ago, but the leaders now, Phil, are around the corner. You can see all the caravans that have come out to see Paris-Roubaix here. They've brought with them a phenomenal crowd as well. O'Grady, Hoste, de Volder and Maaskant, but they are 1.5 minutes in arrears of the 3 leaders of this bike race, who are actually, by the way, on the next section of cobblestones, the cobblestones of Grusson, a section itself of 1.1 kilometres in length.
Well, this is a corridor of frenzied noise here as the riders complete their stretch of this particular stretch at the l'Arbre, and then they too will be heading in. 17 kilometres inside now, just over 16 kilometres to go for these 3 riders. For the moment, picking up a tailwind, and Alessandro Ballan just wondering how is he going to tame Tom Boonen and Fabian Cancellara, the 2 men who have won this race before.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, you've got to be worried and nervous at a situation like this, because
Ja, zijn er. Oh, zijn Paul zit er, ja, dat zie je. Hij zit er nog in, hij zit er terug, hè.
We cannot take Boonen to the finish. He's just too fast.
Little bit of a gap here. Ballan's going to have to step on and close this gap down at 15 kilometres to go. Sector 3, 1100 metres and 2 stars. And they are now moving onward from that. The last Italian to win this race, by the way, was Andrea Taffi. He's now retired. He did it back in 1999.
In fact, Andrea Taffi retired from the sport on this very velodrome. He decided he wanted to ride Paris-Roubaix just one more time, so he came here, and this was his last professional bike race. After that, he retired from the sport, but he's still pretty much around at many of the events. Boonen, I think, just a little test acceleration there to see who was weak and who was strong in this group, but I think it indicated Alessandro Ballan may well be showing his first signs of weakness. Look at Tom's face.
If you think it's easy for the stars, Paul, they make it look easy, but they're suffering like anybody else, and Cancellara's gone.
Well, Tom was ready for that. Don't forget, Tom Boonen is one of the greatest sprinters in the world, and he's going to sprint right onto this. There are not really too many places, Phil, where you can get clear now, so you've got to be very alert. There's one more section of cobblestones, which I regard as a fairly easy section of cobblestones. That's the cobblestone section at M. It's one...
Ja, daar. Ja. De Hoste. De Wallers.
Got the power and the ability to throw attacks at each other. There's no respite at all in this, and they will race this all the way down to the finish line. I still have to say, if I have to pick a winner out of this, if he doesn't make a mistake, it's got to be Tom Boonen. He is the fastest man, but on the velodrome, Phil, it's always very dodgy.
I've just had a horrible thought, Paul. The railroad crossing is still to come.
Exactly. I've been thinking about that for the last few minutes as well, and hope that they get through there without the railway crossing coming down and falsifying what has been a brilliant race so far.
Ja.
Very close attention. They even check the timetables of the SNCF trains, and they are due round about the time the race gets there.
Well, it's a big freight route as well from here up across to the Belgian border, and I don't think they'll be stopping any of those trains. So these guys have just got to hope that they time it to absolute and utter perfection, because if they have to stop now and the group behind starts to...
Benjamin Inkapi, tweede Inkapi. Breschel. Allez,
Stones in this year's Paris-Roubaix, 1,400 metres, a mere 1 star. Hem is where we are, 8 kilometres or 5 miles to go, and these 3 boys, an Italian
as the chasers, and flipping across from left to right here is very dangerous. You've got 2 smooth pieces of road on either side, but you've got a ridge of cobblestones in between, and Kuiper popped his tyre off, and that's certainly what you wouldn't want to happen now to any. And now what they will do is line themselves up for the finish line.
Well, the bikes on the back don't look to have been called in for 2. Look at the crowd down there. There is an awful lot of people down there. They go 3 of them together. Cancellara willing to, here's the switch from the main road into the central reservation and down the smooth stretch of cobblestones. These don't hurt, and these boys are floating right now. It'll be a right turn into the stadium.
It's such a shame after a brilliant battle we've seen here this afternoon that these men, only one can be the winner of Paris-Roubaix this afternoon. Boonen says, okay, Fabian, you sit there because I'm going to keep a very close eye on you. 1,000 metres to go. They're making the right-hand bend, then a left and then a right, and they will be in the velodrome, and you just wait for that cheer.
We're into the velodrome. They're already applauding inside the stadium. We're not even there yet, as we still got the bend to take before we flick onto the track. A daunting prospect if you're not a track cyclist and you see the velodrome here. A massive crowd. Here we go now, and it's going to be Alessandro Ballan who leads Cancellara and Boonen into the stadium. They are onto the track. There's the big screen we've just passed where the crowd have been enjoying this exhibition of incredible bike riding. Now this first half lap will be very, very cautious.
Very cautious, very nervous. Once they come up to the line, they will hear the bell. There it is. That indicates 500 meters to go. It's still Ballan in first position. Second position, Fabian, Cancellara. The crowd are cheering them around. Boonen, for the moment, Phil, is in an ideal position. He's in command here. He can see exactly what the other two guys are doing.
Well, Alessandro Ballan, as he goes into the back straight, he's not going to hold off the two previous winners of this race. He's starting to sprint now. On his right shoulder is where he's just come into the stadium. Tom Boonen, a little bit of track skill here. He's going to go early. He's over the top of Cancellara. He's over the top of Alessandro Ballan. He wins Paris-Roubaix for a second time. And where does he get the power from? Big Tom is an absolute superstar. He salutes the crowd and he's shown the Belgian press he really is the best.
Well, Tom... And how happy is Patrick Lefebvre there with the grey hair on the left-hand side. He's done it. He's broken the stranglehold of Team CSC and brought it back to his team.
As he now comes in, well, this is an incredible performance by him. 22, I think he's 22 years of age, Paul. He was an elite amateur last year, signed for Slipstream Chipotle, and here's the result, because the boys are in the stadium behind him, but they're not going to catch him.
The boys on the behind him are halfway up the banking, but this man now has got 500 meters to go. Phenomenal performance over this week by this young man, Phil, because 12th last week in the Tour of Flanders. We could have said that was a little bit of luck, but there's no such thing in luck in Flanders, but here, 4th place in Paris-Roubaix. That's confirmation that Slipstream Chipotle are riding themselves into the big time.
But surely he won't get a place in the Tour de France on the team this year. He's too young for that, but you never know. He doesn't look like he's got a very young body. There's a lot of stamina down there for this rider. Himself a good time trialist. He powers round. First Paris-Roubaix, he's in 4th place. What's to come for the future for him? And what a result for Jonathan Vaught's Slipstream Chipotle team.
They've got to be very happy with that. The sprint coming forward now for 3rd place, 5th place, I'm going to have to say. This young man has got a lap to go. That looks like Johan van Sommeren coming in there. That's a great performance by him.
He's done well, but Stuart O'Grady is going to take it for 5th. O'Grady, what a result for him too. His teammate gets 2nd. O'Grady, the defending champion, comes home in 5th place.
Leif Hoste
did survive the day. There he is.
There he is, looking over his shoulder. No need to worry at all, Johan. You're going to come across the line there and get yourself a phenomenal 8th place. Well, they're a lap behind.
He finishes, they're a lap down. How good is that?
Well, that's
Take it easy.
Roger Hammond in that group there, and I think with George Hincapie just behind him.
So the top 8 that made the move survived to the end. There's a good sprint here for 2nd place there, for 9th place it is, yes, at the moment. 2 Team High Road boys nailed to the front, but there's a move up on the inside here by Française de Jeux. And the final move, and I think it's going to be, is this Fletcher producing a sprint like this?
Fletcher, Guédon and Hincapie coming into the final corner.
At 9th place, and Guédon coming up on the shoulder, Hincapie going for the inside. They fan out just a little bit. Watch the line. I'm not sure who got that. It wasn't Baldato, surely.
Hincapie got the 9th place there. Tom, there was a lot of pressure on your shoulders, but you came up with the goods and you got the Paris-Roubaix you were looking for.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure, but was not a big problem. I think I don't put the pressure in my mind, and I was just really focused to do a good job today and to win the race. I was not thinking about all the pressure they gave me, and I think now everybody will be happy, and especially me and the team.
Were you not thinking about the sprint on the track, because 3 riders working hard together, you never know for certain that you're going to win, but the way you came out of that last corner?
Yeah, I have a little bit of track experience, and no, I don't have to be afraid to wait for a sprint, especially not after a hard classic like this. And I saw the last 20 kilometers. I was a little bit afraid in the beginning when we were in front with the 3. It's always difficult. Yeah, that's it. But the last 20 Ks, I felt that it was changing, that I got better and the other guys were getting cramped and I saw the legs weren't turning as they were supposed to do. And after Fabian's last attack on Carrefour de l'Arbre, I was not sure, but I was trying to make him come with me to the track and beat him in the sprint. Well done, thank you.